Here we are in week 4 talking about paragraph development, where we have our handy little chart down here detailing a kind of loose structure or format I want your body paragraphs to take. However, during this video, I want to talk about something that we brought up last week, and that's how you want your essays to be insightful. And I talked a little bit about your thesis being insightful, but I want to talk about finding insight within the essay itself. Here we are in our prompt for essay 1, and I just want to scroll down about mid-prompt and remind you guys that I'm looking for this pairing of description and analysis, so two things that go together. And what I really want to see in your essays is how you use both description and analysis to create something insightful, so new thoughts that you're having and writing about. As examples, I've pulled up both of the essays that we read 2 weeks ago. Here I have them right up here. So first I'm going to click on Buoyancy by Willard Spiegelman. And I noticed that Spiegelman is really good at creating insight through language, through description or narrative. And I'm going to go through and just find a few places that he uses language to create insight. And remember, insight is a new thought, something that you haven't thought of before, and hopefully your reader hasn't thought of either. The first thing that I noticed when I read through this essay is his use of verbs. His verb use is really interesting. Here he says, part of an ever-changing geometry through which he slices, and which then corrects itself as he moves past. The verb choice of slices helps to create an image in your head. It helps your brain to actually see what he's talking about. And scientists have done studies on this, about what kind of verbs and images help you to understand abstract images or concepts or ideas. And using really interesting verbs like this, like he slices, can help you do that. I'm going to skip down to page 3. Maybe you'll remember this paragraph. Here at the bottom of this paragraph, he says, when swimming outside, weather plays a delicious part in the body's responsiveness. You can swim in the rain, feeling one kind of water hit you from above while moving through the another kind of water. You can catch short glimpses of clouds passing across the sun. In streams, ponds, or the ocean, you can proceed suddenly from one temperature to another as currents cut in. So, here he's writing the really correct and appropriate description of being in one kind of water and feeling another kind of water on you from the rain. And anyone who swum outside probably remembers this feeling. It's a really tactile feeling. It's something that you don't just remember the idea of it, but you remember the sensation. You remember how it feels. And that's a great way to create imagery. Imagery isn't all about just making a picture. Sometimes it's about creating a touch or a sensation or even a sound. So he does that really well right there. Now let's take a look on page 4. Let's see. He creates a kind of insight here. In those days, swimming, like exercise in general, had not reached as far into the depths of national consciousness as it has since. Everyone knew that exercising was healthy, but no one discussed it. No one talked about endorphins. If you wanted to do something, you did it. Running shoes had not become a highly specialized, scientifically controlled, and commercially advertised product. Ergonomics was not yet a word in the layman's vocabulary. Varsity swimmers must have worn racing suits by Speedo or some comparable company, but ordinary people wore what were called trunks. So he's really going into analyzing just the history of it and how it's changed over time, and not really using language to analyze, right? He's not describing so much here. He's being more intellectual about it. So there's a nice difference between his kind of lovely language up here on page 3 and having more intellectual language down here on page 4. You might want to read through this and just find some other places that you think he uses really nice language, places that make you have a sensation or feel as if you're swimming, or put a picture in your head. Now let's move on to Winter Creek. Here in this essay, Kathleen Dean Moore does a great job of doing more analysis and finding insight that way. I want to skip down kind of towards the end of the essay, hopefully you guys will remember it, where she has just a ton of insights, one right after another. Let's see, I think it's at the very end. Here we go. Let's read this paragraph. Yet poking around is a guaranteed way to learn. Ideas, after all, start with sense impressions. And all learning comes from making connections among observations and ideas. Insight is born of analogy. Everything interesting is complicated. Since truth is in the details, seekers of the truth should look for it there. So there's a paragraph that's all about analysis, and every form of analysis here is insightful. She's coming up with new ideas, she's making discoveries, and of course her topic sentence starts with, yet poking around is a guaranteed way to learn. Okay? So she's talking about people learning the truth or searching out the truth, and we know that truth is in the details and that we should look for the truth there. She goes on in the next paragraph to say, besides, poking around is a recreation, recreation in the most literal sense. John Locke said that what gives each person his or her personal identity is that person's private store of recollections. If so, then people should be careful of curators of the assortment of memories that they collect over the years. Every time you notice something, every time something strikes you as important enough to store away in your mind, you create another piece of who you are. If someone asks, "Who are you?" it is not enough to say, "I am Kathy," or "I am a professor," or "I am Dora's daughter," or "Frank's wife." The complete answer will acknowledge that a person is partly her memories. I am a person who remembers a flock of white pelicans over Thompson Reservoir, pelicans banking in unison into the sunlight, banking into the shadow, flashing on and off like a scoreboard. So here we have 2 paragraphs of really insightful thoughts. She's really going deep here. And at the very end, her example of how to describe yourself, of how to say who you are, uses really beautiful language and a nice memory, and a nice simile. The white pelicans flashing on and off like a scoreboard. So there's another example from Kathleen Dean Moore of how to use analysis and create insight. She's using both description down here at the very end and also just analysis up here of an idea. Poking around is a guaranteed way to learn. Poking around is a recreation in the most literal sense. Who'd ever thought of that before? I don't know. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching the video. Hopefully that gives you a little inspiration to go on and perhaps finish up your draft or work on your final draft. Please let me know if you have any troubles. Thank you very much.